Hi.
Hi.
I'm Nick.
I'm Jill.
And
we're
HipStrings.
HipStrings.
And I just tricked you into doing a drum roll and,
Yes,
and
you
stopping
did.
right before. Welcome to day A of the Base12 Spinalong for 2024. So as we're counting along in Base12, we had a nice long segment about this last time of A is the next one after 9. So while I go and grab my die, Jill will tell you what is in day A.
A is Prussian blue, and it is the 80% Cormo, 20% Tussa silk.
I don't know if I wanted to re-roll this or not,
Why?
because I got day A.
Oh. It's cool. We can both spin the same thing. It seems like a fair fight.
It's something, I mean, yes, there's that, if that's the main reason we're doing, but there's something wrong about going in random order and not actually having a random...
So what's the chance of...
Wow, you're making me do probability and statistics.
Yep.
What is this? This is going to be... Okay, now you're just really actually trying to distract me. Let me get started first, and then I can think about it. Red says, can't go wrong with Cormo and Tussa.
No. It's a pretty good combo.
All right, so each day has a 1 in 12 probability of coming up.
Well, but that's without replacement. Or that's with replacement.
No. I'm just saying each day.
Yes.
One step at a time, okay?
Okay.
Each day, assuming that we're just saying, okay, there's a couple things going on here. So first we have to take the simplest thing of assuming no, or just what's going to come up on that it's the same day as the day it is. So that's a 1 in 12 chance.
Yeah.
Then we have to say, what is the probability that I still have the day available to roll? Which that's going to be like probably 12 factorial or something.
Yeah.
And then that's about as far as I can go in my head, I think.
But you knew you had this day in your last 3 left, so the chance of pulling it tonight was a third.
Yes. Very good.
I may have taken some statistics and probability and...
Now, but the chance, knowing that based on the boundary condition of it being the fact that I had it available in my leftover days, yes, you're right. It was a 1/3 chance.
But if you're looking at any given day, pulling the right day, then that's
1/12.
1/12.
Assuming that we're not going in the aspect of trying to figure out what is the probability that I still have that day available.
Yeah.
Because that ends up getting more complicated, and I need pen and paper to do that. But we have Tracy saying the Cormo has been my favorite. So Tracy, you'll have to let us know if this was the first time you spun with Cormo, or if this was something you knew you were going to like. Leah said I might need to catch up so that I can spin A. And Hollis says happy solstice to everyone.
Yes, happy solstice.
That is one of the things that we wanted to mention as well. Happy solstice. Today is the day that I decided to put up lights outside because it was the first day I had availability. And so now I'm starting to think like, yeah, I got to make sure wintertime, at minimum, I have to have lights up by solstice.
See, I personally think lights should stay up till like vernal equinox.
Yeah. Was the vernal equinox again?
Start of spring.
Okay. That's a long time.
Yeah, but it's a good time to have extra light.
That's true. That's very true.
It snowed here today.
It
Much more than expected.
A winter wonderland. It was wonderful. We went sledding.
We took the bunny out.
Oh my
She loved it.
Gosh, the bunny went crazy in the snow.
She goes out on a leash and harness every now and then, and she doesn't she likes to dig, but she's very hesitant to move around. And today she was not. She was pushing around snow, getting her nose into it, eating grass,
digging around.
Yeah.
She definitely had a ton of fun, and it was great. I wish I had some good video of it, because I saw it off in the corner of my eye, and then every time I looked straight at her, she would just stop and look at me. By the way, Tracy says this is her first Cormo and definitely won't be her last. Christine says, hello, everyone. Hello. And Red says, I prefer Cormo over Merino in most cases. The 24 micron Mendenhall is a special kind of leather. So what's the Mendenhall?
Mendenhall is a particular shepherd.
Hollis is asking Angora Bunny. No, this is
Luna is a Rex.
Yeah, and she's an albino Rex.
Yeah.
So in the snow, it was quite a feat to see.
She was a little yellow compared to the snow.
Yeah. But still, very, very, very nice looking. Very, very pristine and everything. Christine says, I cringe to the thought of a wet bunny. Then I forgot you don't have an Angora.
Her fur is so dense. The Rexes have really dense fur. She was not actually wet, really.
Yeah, I was actually like she must have been out there for what, 20 minutes?
Longer.
And
we were there for probably 45 minutes, almost an hour.
And I was so worried that she was going to be wet and cold, and no, she was. Gab got wet and cold before Luna did.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a great day for Luna. Red clarifies, oops, Mendenhall is actually merino. And Christine says, love a Rex, so sleek. Luna is not very sleek. Luna is very, very chunky.
Yeah.
Over-conditioned is the word we've learned.
And possibly not bred well. She was a rescue. And probably some additional inbreeding. She's a little funky.
She's special.
She's not like most Rexes. It was funny. I talked to a friend who had rabbits, and I was asking her, because I knew she had a Rex, well, okay, how often does your Rex shed? So not that much, barely at all, and it's maybe twice a year. Luna constantly sheds. There is no break in her expelling white fluff over you.
So we should talk about our sweaters.
Yes. So I'm wearing another Carbath. But this one is a stash buster. It is a whole bunch of different yarns held double. And because the Carbath is kind of meant to be a, held double sweater, it makes it really well suited. And the basic construction makes it pretty well suited for stash busting.
And I am wearing, oh gosh, I can't remember, what was the name of the pattern for this?
Strange Brew by Tin Can Knits.
Thank you. This is where my brain is going. I looked it up literally right before just to make sure I wouldn't forget, and there I did. But I went ahead and designed the yoke pattern, so I love bragging about this every year. So I apologize, those of you that have seen this before, but I'm going to say it again. So this is the Star Wars design that I made for when we went to go to Galaxy's Edge, also known as Batuu, also known as Disney Star Wars Land. And Jill had a matching one.
Yeah.
That was
and
all
the kids had
AT-ATs,
hats.
and the kids got hats. If you are familiar with Star Wars enough to know that their written language is called Abaresh, around the neck in Abaresh it says Batuu or Bust. So I had a lot of fun making this. The back is slightly different. It has all my favorite Star Wars ships.
Yeah, we went to Disney for this trip in February 2020, which you would think maybe you'd get a chance to wear a wool sweater.
In February,
we wore it for half an hour.
We wore it to get photos
at Rise of Resistance, and that was it.
Yeah.
The hats were a better idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the cats came up pretty quickly too.
Yeah.
It was pretty warm in Florida in February, but
We went to the pool when we got in.
Amy says that she's also knitting Strange Brew number 2 right now. It is a great pattern. I really like how it's described.
It fits really well on the shoulders.
Yeah, and it has options for shaping, and the unshaping has, at least for my size, some good the amount of ease that I like. So it works really well. I'm actually using this same pattern for a new sweater that I'm working on that I may have mentioned before, which is the Lego minifig sweater pattern.
Nick's sweater is in HipStrings Polworth DK.
Oh, thank you.
Which knits up beautifully at 5.5 stitches per inch, which is what the pattern calls for.
Kristen says, Blessed Solstice, I stayed up all night tending to the Yule log in the fireplace until sunrise, working on spinning and knitting goals for next year, along with self-care goals. It is a good time for it.
That
Absolutely.
sounds like a lovely way to spend an evening.
Yeah. One of our friends actually celebrates the solstice as well out in Seattle. Mm-hmm. I don't know what he does for it, though.
I wished him a happy solstice today. He said they were crossing the mountains to go on an adventure today.
Nice. And
they
Diane says, Me
yesterday.
Too, Strange Brew finished one today. Nice. Lots of love for the Strange Brew.
Mm-hmm. I believe those are double major Strange Brews.
Nice.
Sweaters they're talking about because...
Ooh, I want to see that.
Okay, so let's talk about yarn gauge for a second. So my Polwood DK is sold to me as a DK. And you can knit it as a DK, but it's kind of a light DK. And you can kind of tell that because it's 300 yards to the 100 gram skein, which is more of a sport weight grist. So you can knit Polwood DK at either a sport weight 6 stitches to the inch or DK weight 5.5 stitches to the inch. There's some fatter DKs, usually American DKs, that will knit up at 5 stitches to the inch. Polwood DK does not do that very well. Targhee Sport, which is also what I dyed double major with and what diffusion is listed as a sport weight yarn because it is Targhee, and Targhee is so bouncy. It knits up either at a sport weight gauge of 6 stitches to the inch, or you can knit it up at 5.5 stitches to the inch, and it's happy at either gauge. So I think it's kind of silly that I have a sport weight and a DK weight, and I label them as such, but they have the same gauges.
Well, and
they can be knit up at multiple gauges.
This goes into a little bit of, this is why grist is so important when dealing with any sort of fiber, that the reps per inch is not the only thing that you need to consider when making a knitted garment, right? Also, Jill had predicted correctly both for Amy and Diane. Amy says, Jill is correct. Double major Strange Brew number 2, one with a raven body, one with a fur body. And Diane says, yep, double major number 2 in process. So yeah, we'd love to see some photos of that on the Discord as well. Or, post them on Instagram, tag us. That's another great way to get that
so
stuff
double
out
major
there.
is my yarn that is two 50 gram skeins together, and they are opposing speckled gradients. So they're using that for the yoke, and then the body and the sleeves are a solid.
I've seen a couple of those before, actually. Works out really well.
We have a shop sample of it.
Okay, that's where I've seen it. Now, correct me, I remember you were discontinuing...
I'm not dyeing double major anymore.
Okay, and not double minor either.
But double major has morphed into diffusion, which is a very similar yarn. It's just a one-way speckled gradient laid on top of a semi-solid. Double major was way too labor intensive to continue to make and still charge a reasonable cost for a skein of yarn.
But we have a new process that is a little bit...
That works well for diffusion.
It looks very, very similar.
Very, very similar effect.
It's just not exactly the same. So
Yeah. And then, Targi Sport is kept around and is being expanded. And Polework Decay will also be sticking around. It's just a fabulous non-superwash wool that can knit up at multiple gauges.
Absolutely fabulous. All right. Dan says, I think my second is actually Fusion in pink and black.
Yeah, it might be. Diffusion Kate debuted at Maryland this year.
Kristen says, very funny, my hubby's son and I also did Disney, but Florida, in January of 2020. So, to go to Star Wars area of the parks there. However, we needed sweaters in Florida. So like, it was the same for us. We went to Florida, so we were there literally a month after you.
Yeah. We went for President's Day weekend.
Yeah, because our kids had some time off for President's Day. And then Disney has wonderful materials to help you convince your school that actually a trip to Disney is an educational experience.
Yes. They learn stuff.
Hey, they went
especially to Epcot.
They went to the Hall of Presidents on President's Day, I think, right? Like, it worked out well. And let's see, what else did we do today? Well, we went and took the kids to Pho. Yeah. Also known as Pho, the Korean.
No.
Is it? It's not Korean. What is it?
Vietnamese.
It's Vietnamese. I apologize. That was wrong of me. Vietnamese.
They also had Korean
noodle,
ramen.
That's why I was confused, because this particular pho restaurant I think is run by Koreans, but it's Vietnamese rice noodles, which is fantastic because they always bring a plate of additives with lime juice and
Thai basil, jalapenos, and mung bean sprouts.
Yeah. So you can add what you like. Typically, I just add it all and then ask for more. And Christopher was the only one that was adventurous enough to try it. But he enjoyed it. It's very surprising to us that we have a pho place around now, and it's in the weirdest location because it is not
well,
even
it's like these office buildings that are like probably 4 stories.
Yeah.
But like the ground floor, they have some retail shops but it does not look like a place you'd find a restaurant.
Yeah, and then you go and you go in, and this particular restaurant is fascinating because they made it like a fancy modern decor with like partly like black and gold Egyptian type of.
Oh, it's Art Deco.
No, but yeah, I mean, there's some Art Deco, but as you're going out, there's like the giant cats with like a tray in its mouth, and like that's why I say there's like some Egyptian element to it. It's very, very unique design, and not at all what you'd expect when walking in the door. Very cool. I love it. This is the second time we've been to the place here. All right, good. Some more comments. Isabel says, I love Targi Sport. Used it to make Noah's flax, size 2 to 4T. And Emily says, pho is one of my favorite foods. We figured with me spending the majority of the day
half of the day outside, and it was in the 20s.
Yeah, so I definitely needed something to warm my toes, and that it did do. Yeah. Yeah. I had kept myself nice and warm. I did not have any hand knits on, actually. I did have hand knit socks. But other than that, I had snow pants and
I wore my snowveralls is what Chris is calling them.
That's right.
And a Pendleton wool sweater that we thrifted. I don't know what it is, but a thrift shop that Gab and I like to go to constantly has vintage Pendleton. I've gotten a Pendleton suit. I have a black wool jacket. We just got this. This is a ecru wool sweater in perfect shape. So.
Yeah, and you tend to not even wear any coats in the winter anymore.
No, I
you
don't.
just wear
I wear a lot of
wool.
If it's a really cold day, I wear cashmere. I had silk long underwear on today.
Yeah. So decadent.
Yep.
You're just fancy. We did finish watching Red One this morning also, and I can say it holds up to the end. So just to continue that thread from yesterday, if you haven't watched it, definitely recommend it. Amy, by the way, says, I really hate wearing coats. I'll only cave if I need the wind barrier. And Michelle says, I took Jill's advice to knit my handspun today. I swatched for my traveler's cowl, expecting to be very disappointed in my plying, but it turned out to be pretty nice.
Yeah.
And this is why, like Jill said, knit with your handspun. You will very likely be pleasantly surprised, and you'll learn something about it. So
there might be stuff that you don't like in the skein that you absolutely love once you knit it up.
I can't wait to hear more about your journey there. Kristen says, during Art Deco period is when Tutankhamun's tomb was discovered in the Valley of the Kings. So Egyptian themes in Art Deco decor is very, very common. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, actually. So there's a lot of overlap there. And Jean says, hope it's okay to talk my nine.
Yes, we can talk about
day 9 on day 10. Actually, it's day 8, not day 10, to be pedantic.
Yes.
What is 9? I love the looks of it as a single, but I struggled spinning it. I had to slow down. I didn't know if it's soaking it that would get seized, or if I went too fast.
Okay, so yesterday, day 9, was Odin, which is a merino, Shetland, sari silk, and tussa silk blend. And the sari silk can be a little bit problematic sometimes. Let's say that. And that's just because the way it gets processed. Temperamental. The way it's processed, there can be slubs of it that are very compacted and they don't want to draft. And I was spinning up a sample of a new merino Shetland sari silk, tussa silk today and having the same problem. And I was struggling last night with it too. I definitely, usually when I spin those blends, the sari silk blends, I slow down. And I was thinking about, well, how would you make it easier? And I'm going to try some of my new tricks for breaking up stuff like sari silk. So what I have found is you can get that sari silk to not be so compact and to actually open up and draft if you beat it with a stick.
Quite literally. Take a stick,
okay, so
put it on a pillow.
It's a little bit, yes. Do put it on a pillow. This is the important part. Put it on
someone else you don't like.
Put it on a firm pillow. I use a buckwheat pillow. And then take like a wood knitting needle or a coat hanger and kind of beat it. And it'll introduce a lot more.
I would recommend a dowel rod, right? Like when you're saying a wood knitting needle, you're not saying something like...
It needs to be of substantial...
Yeah, so you're talking about like a centimeter in diameter.
Yeah, at least half an inch, probably. And use that to kind of open it up. It'll help break up those clumps of sari silk and kind of mechanically break them apart so that they'll actually draft. And I've done this to 100% sari silk. And it went from being impossible to spin on its own to spinning with no problems. It's just sometimes, and I know this is a problem with cotton, because it's the same thing with cotton. You can do it, if you're having trouble with it and it's slubbing, is to beat it, to break it up. And so certain fibers, when they get wet, will cling to each other. And even as they dry, they will maintain that. And I would guess there's a little bit of extra, like silk is so smooth, as well as there might be some leftover Saracen that's kind of holding those fibers together and causing them to create slubs.
Now, is there any concern, because it's not just sari silk, it's also with wool, is there any concern about felting when
As
you're
long
doing
as
the
your
beating?
as long as your wool's not wet while you're beating it, as long as it's dry and you're not doing it a ton, it'll be fine.
Okay.
I've opened up 100% wools by beating them.
So, by the way, Jean had a typo saying, I wonder if the silk seized up my spinning if I treadled too fast. And Michelle also said, I also slowed down, or rather, moved my drive band to the bigger notch on the whirl.
Yep.
But I just assumed that it was supposed to be slubby and textured.
Yeah, that's
which
kind
allowed
of
me
the
to get
point
it to
of it's supposed to be
happen as
tweedy
it did.
and have that kind of texture. But if that's something that bothers you, and like it messes up my rhythm when I'm drafting, but you can improve that. And I also wonder,
Change that.
you can change that.
Not qualify, not improve.
Yes,
right?
okay.
You can change it.
You can change it. You can modify your fiber so that it behaves more like how you want it to behave. Another way to do it would also be to draft through, to pull it through a diz and do some pre-drafting. And that'll help break up those lumps. But I think the most effective way is to beat it with a stick.
I mean, that's certainly the most satisfying way.
Yeah.
And I think this is, again, we talk about this almost every day, but this is your product, right? It comes from a fiber that you bought from somebody who had not even a design intention, but is providing you a palette, a toolkit for you to produce. So if you want to spin it to get tweed, awesome, spin it to get tweed. If you want to try and work that stuff out, absolutely, go ahead and beat it with a stick, put it through a diz, or if you want to pick it out and create your own version of it, that's an option as well, right?
I mean, there is a little pile of slubs next to my spinning today.
So all of these things are completely valid and good ways of dealing with your product that you are producing.
And you should be learning stuff that allow you to have more control about the process.
So Michelle says, this is not the first time you've brought up a diz. Please talk more about that.
Do I have one around here?
I don't think you do.
I have them elsewhere in the house. So a diz is very simply an object with a hole in it. Usually, like maybe the largest size hole might be, I think, 3/8 of an inch or so. Not a very big hole. And you might get multiple holes in a thing. I sell a diz that has 3 holes. And the idea is that by pulling fiber through a hole, you are kind of drafting it in a very controlled manner to form a sliver, or to reduce the diameter of your top. They're also used to pull off from hackles and combs to create top from, those combing tools. But you can also use a diz to kind of help you. I'm not very good at pre-drafting with just my hands. I don't find I have a ton of control. I find if I do it through a diz, then I have a lot more control and I get a better product. And it kind of it'll add a lot more air to the fiber. It will do a little bit of blending in terms of color or materials. And my bobbin is mad at me now. And there is a video on the internet somewhere of somebody using a HipStrings diz to show that kind of easy fiber prep. And it's something I'll be teaching this year. It's a neat little trick I often pull out in many of my classes.
So if you want to go to the HipStrings website and you search for diz, it'll show up, and you'll see it's basically about maybe a 2-inch disc that has 3 holes in it of different sizes, and so
It's
the idea
quarter-inch
is
acrylic, so it's
nice and hefty.
It's not going to break.
You pull through the largest hole, and you don't just yank it, right? You're actually trying to pull on either side of the diz as it's going through and make it so that it can come through very gently. So you're drafting and pulling and drafting and pulling and drafting and pulling, right? And then once you're through this biggest hole, if you want to go to a smaller hole size to get more pre-drafting in, you go smaller and smaller, right? So that's why there's the 3 size options in the HipStrings diz.
I will bring one for tomorrow night, and I will show you how I spin with one.
All right. Jean says, I love the slubs. Will there be more? Not sure I want to spin a sweater worth, but if you're willing to beat more, I'm game.
So everything in the Mythology collection, which right now is Rumpelstiltskin, Perseus, Kelpie, Chiron, Odin, and there's one more. Kobold. Those are all of my Sari silk blends. They all belong. They're all the same fiber content so that you can mix and match if you want. And there will be, when Perseus runs out, because I won't be restocking Perseus, the new one will be Aphrodite, which is a very deep red.
Michelle says, cool, and you look for that video, and she's getting clarification. Yes, that's prep. You don't do it while spinning, so you will pre-draft.
You can do it while you're spinning.
You can.
I'll show tomorrow night.
That would be crazy.
I do.
All right, never mind. Ignore what I said.
If I'm spinning chunky bats, I will put them through a diz while I'm spinning.
Yeah. Usually when people start off learning what the diz, you do it as prep.
Yeah. I can't be bothered to do things in multiple steps. I'll just stall.
Look at you go.
I know.
You had a lot of troubles before.
I had.
Yeah.
And then my bobbin just decided to misbehave.
I should color, and I don't remember if I colored yesterday. I'm going to have to count. Let's see. 1,
Do you know
2,
how to
3,
count?
4, 5, 6. What? Why are you asking that? All right, I'm gonna do this. Give you a little hug.
Hi, I love you too.
I love you too. You have this weird affinity of asking me if I know how to count, and I don't understand why. It was that one time I had difficulty figuring out when we were in the middle. Maybe that's why. So I feel a little bit.
Are you being fancy tonight?
Yeah, I'm being fancy tonight. I am. There's a book like right in the center that has like a perimeter, and I'm coloring the perimeter in a different color, so that I can be fancy. Although I'm making an absolute atrocious color combination. This is why Jill designs the blends and not me.
Okay, so Kristen is asking is the heavier silk blends. That she's either having issues with them falling apart or getting almost rope-like. And I'm guessing this is more of a problem with mulberry silk blends. And that's just because mulberry silk is a smooth fiber. And that's why it's so shiny. That means it has no grip to other fibers. So it doesn't, if you have a lot of it, there's not a lot of structural integrity to your fiber and it will fall apart. Tussa has a little bit of surface texture, so it will actually grab onto wool better than mulberry silk. But so that's part of the issue. And then the rope-like is, especially with mulberry silk, if you let any twist into your fiber supply, then it will find that mulberry silk, and it will the mulberry silk will find the other mulberry silk, and that twist will just go down your mulberry silk and not integrate into any of the wool. What?
I'm just comparing.
Okay. And your wool and your silk might need different amount of twists. So it can get ropey and it will not want to draft.
So what do you mean by heavier silk blends? Are you talking about things
I'm
that
guessing
have higher
percentage.
silk content?
So, if you notice, I don't tend to do more than about 25% silk in my blends. And that is because I don't like spinning more than 25% silk.
Yeah.
I find it's a lot trickier and you really have to be on top and spinning.
A little bit more.
I told you my bobbin's
Yeah.
being really...
I was going to say,
It either has really strong take-up or...
There you go. You fixed it.
Yeah, but it's got higher take-up than I would like. And treadling's... I'm not happy right now.
Yeah. Do you need some lube?
I might.
Lube is always the answer.
But yeah, so you have to spin in a more true worsted for heavier silk blends. And that's not what I like to do. So
Kristen is clarifying percentage and in sections of bats where there's just more present, right?
Yeah.
So not a significant amount
yeah,
of
and
blending.
that's especially with mulberry silk. That twist will just want to travel along the mulberry silk and not grab any other wool. And you'll pull just mulberry silk.
So does spinning from the fold help a little bit with that?
Spinning for the fold can, because you're not letting the twist have a direct, inline path of travel. You're making it go from side to side of the fibers instead of tip to tip. And twist doesn't travel as efficiently that way.
Okay, stop talking with your hands.
I don't care about how long I take anymore. So you can, but you'll lose all of your shine if you spin from the fold.
Okay, that is one issue from it. Okay.
So the way really is, I highly recommend stripping, or
Peeling out different strips.
pulling out different strips,
like
or,
what I've been doing at the beginning.
or using a diz, so that you're doing kind of a little bit extra blending, and so that's why I spin usually other people's bats through dizzes, because a lot of people who make bats only do one pass on their drum carder, and that means that chunks of silk usually tend to remain as chunks and they don't get broken up and well integrated with the wool.
So, by the way, Heather says, just finished a long day at work. Great to unwind with you guys. See you tomorrow. Good night. And
Good night.
She apparently finished before you. So, yeah, silk is such an interesting beast in terms of creating everything, getting the right working texture together.
Yes, Red, some of you do have mad skills with the smooth bats, but you don't typically sell your bats. So not everybody can get their hands on it. And most of the bats that are available...
I think she might have been complimenting you on your smooth bats,
yes,
Jill.
possibly.
All right, now I'm just mesmerized by watching you. Okay, I feel like I need to get out of your way.
Yeah, well, because I'm having issues with my take-up, it's a lot better for me if I spin worsted.
Okay.
So I'm doing a short backwards draft, which is the easiest way for me to deal with this take-up.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like there's something stuck on there.
Something is not happy. I am really having to work on treadling.
Yeah.
It is much heavier than it ought to be. I don't know. Maybe I need to change my brake band. This is the one that came with the wheel.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, it's not my replacement, so I might need to replace it.
Sorry, like I said, I'm mesmerized.
I give a little thing. So the reason why, I had to crank up my take up on this in order to get it to take up at all. But that makes it really hard to do a point of contact draft, because the more tension you have on your single, the faster the twist will travel in your single.
You look
So
exhausted.
I am exhausted. My hands hurt.
Oh, wow.
So when you have more tension, twist travels faster. With point of contact, where I'm trying to make sure that the twist stays in the drafting triangle but doesn't get into the fiber supply, I have to have a lot of control about where that twist is, and if it's moving too fast, it's hard to have that level of control. So usually a point of contact draft or anything semi-woolen, you would spin with a lighter take up.
Yeah.
If you're spinning a worsted draft, you can have much stronger take up.
Gotcha. Yeah. The we'll have to diagnose what's all going wrong with the wheel tomorrow, and then we can tell you all about what we fixed. All right. So as you know, we make different things at my work requiring chemistry, and I've been going and looking at different companies, and there's one company we've been talking to, and they were going to make some chemistry for us, and we got a sample, and it was just okay. And then I realized the problem was they didn't have a factory, they had a satisfactory.
Thanks, Nick.
I did my coloring.
I did not do my coloring. My bag's so empty.
Yeah, well, we only have 2 days left.
I can't believe it.
So tomorrow is going to be day B, because B comes after A.
Yep.
And then it will be day 10. I hate calling it 10 because it's
very confusing if you call it 10.
Yeah, so it'll be day 10 at the end. But tomorrow is day B.
Because it's actually day 12. But
No, tomorrow's day 11.
I mean the last day.
Yes.
It's represented 10, but it's actually 12.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good
Night, guys.
And have a happy solstice.